Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 138. 138. September the 3rd, 2018. Thank you so much for tuning in. Happy Labor Day. Well, hopefully you're all off work today. I had to make a brief run out to the place for about an hour to get a phone jack ran. But other than that, pretty much had the day off. Throwing some burgers on the grill, yes. So before I get into the news of the day, I just want to let you know that I did go back last night, spent several hours working on my timeline. And so I went back and I've reworded a lot of the things in there, so it's much easier to read now. And I corrected some spelling and grammar errors, plugged in some dates that were not correct, were off a little bit, filled in some information that we now have that we didn't know before. So I think the timeline right now is as best as it's ever been. Much easier to read, got a lot of the errors fixed, and input a lot more information into there. So the timeline is looking as good as it's ever been. It's much easier to read and go through now than it's ever been. So hopefully if you haven't had a chance to check out the timeline, you might want to go ahead and do that at some point. So there you go. Okay, so the first couple things I want to talk about today are both stories from Jeff Carlson, who, as you know, is now writing for the Epoch Times. He still does do articles on Real Clear Investigations, but now he's like a regular writer over at the Epoch Times, which is a very good site. So this first story I'm going to talk about was, I think, posted up on Friday, and I just haven't had a chance to get to it, but he's saying here that, of course, we know that Nellie Orr was working for Fusion GPS in the late fall of 2015, not April of 2016, as previously believed. So what happened was Daryl Issa was on Fox, and he said that they learned from Bruce Orr that Nellie started working there in the fall of 2015. We all just thought that was a mistake, but then we found out it was not a mistake. That in fact it was late fall, probably in November of 2015, when Nellie Orr began working for Confusion GPS. Now we know from Perkins Coie that she wasn't being paid through Confusion GPS until April, which means we have another question to answer. Who was paying her from November through April? Someone was obviously paying her. The only question is, was it the CIA? Because she did work as an open researcher for the CIA. Was it Confusion GPS? Was she working directly for Hillary? Somebody was paying her for that period of time, and I expect at some point we'll learn who that was. So Nellie Orr was working for Fusion GPS the same time that the FISA 702 queries were being done. Exactly the same time. And keep in mind, as I just said, Nellie was an open source researcher for the CIA. And we know that if you go to the CIA.gov website, you will see that Confusion GPS is listed as a CIA contractor. These are things that will come into play in the future, hopefully in the near future. We also have John Brennan, Mr. Potato Head, telling Rachel Madcow on the August 28th, 2018 interview of just a few days ago that, quote, "Any time we would incidentally collect information on a U.S. person, we would hand that over to the FBI because they had the legal authority to do it." End quote. So what's he telling us here? He's basically telling us that the CIA, or contractors for the CIA, were conducting incidental collection, and we can assume that he's got to be talking about going through the NSA. Probably these contractors, this is what this tells me, is that these contractors who were doing these FISA 702 queries were likely working under the auspices of the CIA. Mr. Potato Head was probably the one directing the private contractors who were accessing that database. And as you can see here, he says, because they had the legal authority to do that. So what is he telling us? Is he telling us, is he admitting right there to Rachel Madcow that that these private contractors working for the CIA, accessing the NSA database via the FBI systems, were doing so illegally, and therefore any information that they would retrieve would have been illegal, and they could not have done anything with it because they're the CIA. So they were conducting these illegal FISA 702 queries illegally, and then they were feeding it to the FBI so that it would appear to be legal. This is why, as I've said before, that they need to dig into this. Now, I've had a couple people ask me in the comments section suggesting I should call Nunes or whoever. Well, just for your information, I have contacted the offices of Devin Nunes in Washington, D.C., and on 2 occasions that I called to inform them about the multi-agency task force and the FISA 702 queries. On both occasions, the person I got on the phone, of course, would not let me speak to Nunes, but would not even let me speak to one of his investigators working for the Senate, for the House Intelligence Committee. They will not put you through to those guys. They did take my message, and on both occasions, I gave very specific instructions to them, and I'm pretty sure the guy was writing it down, and I alerted him to both of these things, and I have made that phone call on 2 occasions. I have also sent 2 handwritten letters to Jim Jordan, advising him of the same. So I have to assume at this point that they know that. As I stated yesterday, it was John Brennan, Mr. Potato Head, who sat right there in Nunes's House Intelligence Committee with Nunes sitting right there, and he told them that the FBI investigation actually started as an intelligence operation, which became a counterintelligence operation and then a criminal investigation once it became the property of Uncle Bob the Executioner and the Hillary donor posse. So they're aware of this. But I think that Nunes and the Congress, they're doing things the way most investigations are done, which is you start from here and you work your way back. And they don't want to step over anything. They don't want to jump to the beginning. They're working themselves through in a process. It's not going as fast as I would like, but this is the method, obviously, that they're working with. And that's fine. But I would like to see the media, such as Sean Hannity or Tucker Carlson or Judge Jeanine or one of those people, there's nothing stopping them from talking about the 702 FISA queries, the illegal searches that were done. Nothing stopping them from talking about the multi-agency task force. I did also contact one of the producers for the Sean Hannity radio show, and I sent an email there. So I have been trying to get this information into that realm. It doesn't appear I've been that successful. Now, Joe DeGeneva has talked about it because I believe he does watch my videos on occasion. And we know that Sidney Powell has talked about these things as well. But I'll continue. I think I may try to send Judge Jeanine this information and see if she'll do anything with it on air. Because, again, if you if you look at the fall of 2015 FISA 702 queries that were being done through the NSA database via the FBI systems, and you look at the multi-agency task force, if you take these 2 things, there is the origin of where all this started. And both of those things will lead you to everything else. They will lead you to the counterintelligence operation. They will lead you to the other investigations, of which we know for a fact were 4 named investigations. We know that from John Solomon's article. So that will get you into the FISA, that will get you into the masking, the unmaskings that were going on, and of course that will get you into these other investigations. It is, for me, the place that you would start if you want to start at the beginning and move forward. You know, when you're giving information to the public, this is how you want to put out the information. If you're doing the investigation, you work in reverse. But when you're putting out the information to the public, you start at the beginning, the origins, and you move forward. So I'll continue to make efforts in this regard to hopefully be able to influence some of these media sources, media figures, to get them to get people thinking about those 2 things, the illegal FISA 702 queries and the multi-agency task force. Those 2 things need to be clearly understood, because when those things are understood and explained, it will fertilize people's minds so that all the other information that they get will begin to make sense, so it isn't so scattered. Trump needs to declassify the 99-page FISA court document by Judge Collier. There are dozens, if you go look at it, you'll see this. There are dozens of redactions of all the names. So we know that we're not just talking about 1 or 2 or 3. There could have been a dozen or more people who were illegally accessing this NSA database. We need to get the unredacted 99-page FISA court document made available to the public and to the media. Hopefully, Trump will declassify the 99-page FISA court document by Judge Collier. It'll be very helpful. So, there were no hearings. Does that mean that the Woods procedures were also not followed? And keep in mind who was instrumental in implementing the Woods procedures. It was Uncle Bob, the executioner, when he was FBI director, working with the Department of Justice. They decided, because of other faux pas that they had been engaged in with the FISA court, that they needed to do this as a reassurance measure. And the objective was primarily 3 things: to have this Woods procedure followed as a last measure before they actually grant the FISA warrant. And what it was meant to do was, number 1, to make sure that the facts that support probable cause for the warrant were verified. Number 2, that the existence and nature of any related criminal investigations or prosecutions involving the subject of the FISA would be made clear, and also the existence and nature of any prior or ongoing asset relationships between the subject and the FBI would be made perfectly clear. Had they followed these 3 guidelines laid out by Uncle Bob, the executioner, when he was FBI director, had they done these things in regards to the Woods procedures, the FISA warrant would never have been granted. Had they had open hearings and had the FISA court justices ask some questions, it's very likely there also would not have been a granting of those FISA warrants, which tells me that's exactly why they did not do it. They did not do it because they knew that if those FISA warrants, those FISA applications, had to stand up to the scrutiny of questioning and to the Woods procedures, those FISA warrants would never have been granted. Tells me that the FISA court judges were given cover. They had to know what was going on. They had to be participants, or they would have asked questions, and they would have wanted to see the report from the Woods procedures. They never asked about that, and they never asked any questions. They went straight off the application. That's on them. It's their bad. But the question we have to ask is, why? Justice Roberts needs to get busy. Also, it should be noted that they have to inform the FISA court anytime there have been any changes after the initial facts that were presented in the initial application. And there were many, many things that they learned after the first FISA application to the third renewal that it appears they did not alert the FISA court to. So another place where they skirted the rules and regulations regarding the FISA court system for getting FISA court warrants. They violated every single procedure. These are criminal acts. We have a bombshell statement from Greg Jarrett. Greg Jarrett stated on Fox that Trump may declassify the Russiagate documents. Wow. Now, I thought, yeah, he would maybe declassify the FISA court applications. He may declassify some other things. But if you're talking about what Greg Jarrett's talking about, of Trump declassifying the Russiagate documents, we're talking about all the documents from the Mueller investigation. Can you imagine that? You want to blow Uncle Bob out of the water? And I don't know if Trump would do this or not, but Jarrett he wasn't joking. He didn't laugh after he said it. He said that it's very possible that Trump would declassify the Russiagate documents. That would mean declassifying basically all the information that Uncle Bob the executioner and the Hillary donor posse have compiled throughout their investigation. This is very important because Uncle Bob the executioner has interviewed a lot of people that the Congress has not been able to interview. We know for sure Steele, some of these FBI agents over in Rome, Mr. Misfid, Mr. Melion, Mr. Timoviv, the other guy, what was his name? I forget his name now. Interviewed him. The Papagalopoulos interviews. And many other interviews would all be unveiled if Trump actually did declassify the Russiagate documents that Uncle Bob the executioner and his team had put together since their investigation. There's probably a lot of people that were interviewed by Uncle Bob that we don't even know about. Wow. That would be, you want to blow open the Mueller investigation and blow open the whole Spygate story? That would actually do it right there. I would think that that would be a major leap. But if Greg Jarrett is saying it with a straight face, maybe he knows something I don't know. I would certainly love to see it, because that would, in fact, that would blow this whole thing completely wide open. And we would learn a lot. We would also learn an awful lot about Uncle Bob and how he's handling his investigation, and how much evidence, contrary to what he's trying to prove, would be revealed. Kind of like exculpatory evidence, evidence that doesn't help his case, that he ignores. That would be absolutely epic. It would be absolutely epic, and I sure hope he does it. So we had an article by the Last Refuge on Conservative Treehouse talking about this crazy article that came out in the New York Times. I believe it was on Friday or Saturday. The comical propaganda story that they put out. That's basically the New York Times claiming that the FBI was actually trying to flip Oleg Deripaska. Man, oh man. It's amazing as we've gone through this entire thing now, over 500 days of TowerGate, how many times we have seen the collaboration between the DOJ, the CIA, the FBI, and the media, constantly trying to find a spin job, a spin story, or some sort of explanation for the things they've done. First, they told us it was the dossier that got the FISA warrant. Then when that didn't fly anymore, they gave us the Papagalopoulos story. Then that got burned out. Within like 2 days, it was blown out of the water. Then they just quit commenting on it. They haven't written anything since then. So we're left pretty much with the Pops Downer theory as being the reason they got the FISA warrant, although we know that's not true either. We've had many stories where they're constantly coming out. The story after Mr. Wolf had been arrested, by the way. Many of these stories, and this is just another one, where they come out and try to make this ridiculous assertion. There are already facts in the public record, including by them at the New York Times and other left-wing outlets, that completely refute what the point is that they're trying to make here. And when all the facts come out, this is going to be laughable. I mean, we already know. We have the actual transcript where we can see Deripaska's response to the FBI when they came to visit him at his New York apartment, or wherever he lives there in New York. He laughed at them. So the facts will ultimately destroy this silly narrative. Deripaska, of course, we know, was paying Steele. Steele was working for Deripaska to lobby for him to get his visa to enter the U.S., which he eventually did get on February of 2017. We know that Deripaska laughed at the FBI when they asked him about Trump-Russia collusion. We know that Deripaska was highly likely, a source for Christopher Steele, and may very well have been the person who either provided the details of the P-Gate story or provided some confirmation for the P-Gate story. The idea that they were trying to flip Deripaska is a joke. I've been working with the guy for years. And right now, if you want to talk about somebody having blackmail material on somebody, Deripaska has got the FBI and the DOJ over a barrel right now. I mean, he could come out and come clean and probably shine a lot of light on these things. That's why they don't want him talking. And no telling, that's probably what he did. He played them. Deripaska, they went to play Deripaska, and he ended up playing them because Trump won. I don't think Deripaska had any interest in whether or not Trump or Clinton won. I mean, if you're an oligarch, a Russian oligarch or anyone else, those people don't really care about who wins the presidency. As far as they're concerned, it's the establishment and it's all the same. You know, one way or another, you got to deal with one or the other, and they can all be dealt with when you're a billionaire with all the connections and all the things that people like Deripaska and other billionaires have. They can play either side of the aisle. I don't think they see a political difference between left and right, Republican, Democrat. They work the establishment, not the political party system. Clearly, Deripaska's sitting in the catbird seat. He's probably got information that could be very embarrassing to the DOJ and the FBI, and he could blow this little story completely out of the water. It already is blown out of the water. But I guess the New York Times and the corrupt media believe if they just keep throwing stuff against the wall, they'll see what sticks. And I guess they believe that the people who dutifully read their garbage papers, that they'll believe anything they're told. Even if there's contradictory evidence out there, I guess they believe that the readers are not intelligent or curious enough to go find it, or remember that 2 days ago they published an article making another assertion. I guess they think their readers have a very short memory, or they're dumb. Hard to imagine, but the fact of the matter is, and the reason that they're doing this is because the lying media, and especially the New York Times, are not just providing cover to the FBI, the DOJ, and the CIA, and the deep state. And it's not specifically about even this, on this particular point with Bruce Orr. It's because they are trying to cover their own asses. Because when the truth comes out, and it will, the world will learn that the lying, corrupt media were participants. They were participants in the plot. They are acting to protect their own interest as well. And there may be criminal liability for participating in a coup. Coups are not protected by the First Amendment. Former Chief of Staff to Slick Willie and former CIA Director Leon Panetta bluntly tells Democrats not a wise tactic to be talking about impeaching Trump. He says it's a loser, especially for the midterms, and he says it could backfire. It already has. Well, it looks like Obama and the rotten Reverend Clinton are all set to hit the campaign trail to campaign for Democrats. The problem is, a lot of these Democrats don't want them anywhere around, including Obama. We have John Tester of Montana and Heidi Heitkamp of North Dakota are both being advised to keep Obama and Hillary away. In Ohio, we have Richard Cordray, who's running for governor, and Sherrod Brown, who's running to hold on to a Senate seat, are both being mum about the question as to whether or not they would like the rotten Reverend Clinton and Obama to come in and campaign for them. Remember, Trump won Ohio by 11%. Bob Casey of Pennsylvania is not saying if Obama and the rotten Reverend Clinton will be invited to campaign there. Yet, Trump is being welcomed with open arms by all candidates across the country, states red and blue. He's being welcomed to Kentucky, Missouri, Montana, Nevada, North Dakota, South Dakota, Tennessee, and you can throw Ohio and Florida in that equation as well. Why? Because he's really popular and he can really bring in the votes. See, the media wants to convince people that Trump's really unpopular while telling all their sycophants that Clinton, the rotten Reverend, and Obama are God's gift to the Democratic Party. Yet the reality is, when you look at these Democrats who are campaigning for the midterms, they don't want Obama and the rotten Reverend Clinton anywhere around. Yet Trump is going to be invited right into their backyard to campaign for people running against them. We have this asswipe, Sherrod Brown, who we know very well here in Ohio. We know what he's all about. He's out there campaigning here in Ohio, saying that while he doesn't agree with Trump on this or that or the other thing, he says that he thinks that he would be able to work with Trump. Why? Because he knows how popular Trump is here in Ohio. And Sherrod Brown ain't going to do a damn thing to work with Trump on any issue. He will be 100% resistance all the way. He is a hardcore, bought and paid for Hillary Clinton sycophant. Sherrod Brown is on the rotten Reverend Clinton payroll, always has been. He's a total bootlicker to the rotten Reverend Clinton. Total sellout to the rotten Reverend. And everyone in Ohio knows it. Sherrod Brown may be fooling the national media. He will not fool anybody in Ohio. We know this guy way too well. He runs for every damn office in the state of Ohio. It's all he can do. He can't do a real job. He's incompetent. He can't work in the private sector. He's a dope. The only thing he can do is be a politician. It doesn't matter what office it is. If he can't find a Senate seat or a House seat or a governor or something like that, he'll run for city council. He'll run for treasurer. He'll run for dog catcher. He'll run for anything that'll put him on the public payroll because he can't function in the private sector. He's a dope. We all know that here in Ohio. But it shows you where the energy is and where the momentum is. And there ain't no blue wave coming, my friends. There might very well be a red tsunami. I can tell that right now. One final word on the disturbing 3 days of events that were around the political rally, the anti-Trump political rally, that was the Senator Magoo funeral. I remember a lot of state funerals. I remember the JFK funeral. I remember the Reagan funeral. And I remember the Ford funeral. These were presidents. They did not get nearly the hoopla and the overall spectacle that we saw in the 2 to 3 days of the, really 3 days of the McCain funeral. None of those presidents got the type of send-off that Senator Magoo got. So the question would be why? And I think there are two simple answers. Number one, Senator Magoo was seen as the face of the anti-Trumpism that the deep state is all in line with. So they wanted to play up McCain, not because they think McCain was such a great guy, but because he gave them a forum. His funeral gave them a forum to have a national something that would appeal, that would be out there nationally and actually internationally, where they could show their asses and their anti-Trump hatred. They used Magoo's funeral as a background to carry out their anti-Trump political rally. And we can see in the papers, it's now that it's passed, it's already backfiring. I don't know if any of you read that article in the New York Post, but the article in the New York Post went after Meghan McCain pretty severely. I'm sure you can find that article. Just go to the New York Post. It's right there. And the second reason that we now know that the McCain funeral was such a spectacle, such an overblown extravaganza, is because we now have learned that it was Senator Magoo himself who planned his own damn funeral. Everything that we've seen for the past 3 days, it was all planned by Senator Magoo. Absolutely unbelievable. And it was he personally who selected the axis of idiots, the axis of evildoers, W, Obama, and Slick Willie, to be the three main speakers. The axis of idiots. The axis of evildoers. Take your pick. And what will we remember a year or two from now? Or maybe just a week or two from now? When all this is blown over about the Magoo funeral? I think mostly what we'll remember is Ariana Grande being Googled by Slick Willie and this pervy preacher squeezing her boobs. That's likely what we'll remember. Reality winner spoke by phone with an Atlanta newspaper and told them that she is going to seek clemency from President Trump. She was given, of course, a 63-month sentence. Trump came out and tweeted that he thought that was unfair, because when you look at what the rotten Reverend Clinton did, and she walks away scot-free, but Reality Winner gets 63 months. Now, keep in mind, Reality Winner was a hardcore anti-Trumper. She had all those anti-Trump posts on her social media. And the very thing that she was leaking, something that was supposed to feed the Russia hacking the election narrative. Yet, since Trump came out and made that statement, she seems to have had a change of heart. Maybe she's on the Trump train. I don't know. Now, I don't know that Trump is going to, give her clemency for a 63-month sentence. I mean, it's a pretty long sentence for that particular type of a crime. But the point is that it shouldn't be that we're looking at reducing the amount of time that she spends in prison. What we should be doing is making sure that the rotten Reverend Clinton and all her goons and all those who participated in the coup spend at least 63 months in prison. Probably 100 times more than that, because what they did was 100 times worse than what Reality Winner did. But I think Reality Winner is getting herself a reality check, because my guess is Democrats have dropped her like a hot potato. I bet you don't get any fan mail from them. I bet they're not sending her chocolate cakes or nail files. Not a thing from the Democrats for Reality Winner. She served their purpose, and they're done with her. Trump's the only one that's out there defending her. CNN has now gone completely off the ledge, which you just keep thinking they can't get any worse. They can't go any lower. You keep thinking, how could they do it? But they manage. They manage to actually do worse and worse and worse all the time. So CNN is now naming Ruth Bader Ginsburg as the face of the resistance. Isn't a Supreme Court justice supposed to be impartial, non-political, and austere? Isn't that what Thurgood Marshall stated? So now they're going to call Ruth Bader Ginsburg the face of the resistance, a Supreme Court justice who's not supposed to be political? Only CNN could conjure that one up. Besides, she's older than dinosaur dung, she is near senile, and may not even survive until 2020. Guess who's thinking about throwing their hat in the ring for 2020? John Kerry for 2020. God, I hope so. Hey, the very best thing that they had against John Kerry was the old Swift boat ads. And they already got them into can. They don't even have to go out and remake them. They just have to reshow the Swift boat Johnny ads. And once they show the Swift boat ads again and remind people what a fraud that Kerry is, that'll do him in. Yeah, he'd be horrible. I can't imagine John Kerry. Plus, he's white. He's a white male. In case you didn't know, John, your party doesn't like white males anymore. Sorry, you're out of luck, buddy. Rat boy Chris Wallace says Trump is to blame for the Russia probe. Are you kidding me? Rat boy Chris Wallace of Fox News says Trump's to blame for the Mueller probe. Yes, his father was a card-carrying member of the Communist Party. He's a hardcore lefty. And I don't even watch Chris Wallace. I mean, I don't know if any of you do, but he's, who cares what Chris Wallace says? But that's a very stupid statement to make, that Trump's responsible. No, actually, the deep state and all your friends, Chris, are responsible for the Mueller probe. The only thing you can say that Trump is guilty of or responsible for is the fact that he ran for president and he won. That's the casus belli, Chris. Rat boy. You asshole. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. You guys have a good night. Bye.